3 months ago, I released a video that was basically me giving my take on and a couple of debunks for a series of TikTok videos released by a TikTok and YouTube artist named Cyril Schreiner. What a time that was, where my biggest concern was that millions of people were buying into the bullshit that this YouTuber was perpetrating. Editor's note. I realized that I didn't explain what this bullshit was while filming this video, so let's just do a really quick recap right here and right now. So Schreiner basically filled up a bathtub with Orbeez, which is a tiny bead-like object that gets to 100 times its natural size once it's absorbed in water. He claimed that it got into his sewage and plumbing system and blocked up his toilet, and then this happened. After that happened, it came out of his sink, and he insisted that when trying to clean it up, he ended up destroying his family's vacuum cleaner. Further to that, he claimed that the Orbeez appeared in the storm drains outside of his house. He tried to get rid of it by pouring salt onto the Orbeez, which he was told would dissolve them, and then this happened. Eventually, the Orbeez overtook his entire neighborhood. He ended up being contacted by the authorities, by his local neighbor, and by the mayor of his city, allegedly. Now, I feel like at the time I did a pretty good job explaining my reason behind why I believed it was fake. I provided some explanations as to how that could have been accomplished, using some trickery of the camera, and I felt like I delivered my argument pretty well. If you didn't see that video, you can watch it over here or whatever, or I'll link it in the top link of the video down below. Frankly, at this stage I'd be surprised if you didn't see it, because that video is pushing 6,000 views at the moment, which for me is amazing, so thank you everybody who watched it. It was also really good to see a really derisive response to the video with an almost exact down the middle split between likes and dislikes. So I guess clearly I haven't convinced a lot of you with the reasoning that I used. Either that or this being YouTube, a lot of you just click dislike because you think I'm an ugly twat, but that's your problem, not mine, because it's easier to change your opinion than it is to change your appearance. And also shame on you for being such a shallow fucking prick. But in any case, the apparent evidence that I have here is that half of the people out there who saw my video were satisfied with accepting that the original video by Cyril was 100% authentic. And I'm sure that if that same group of people saw Gus Johnson's skit about crayons, they'd believe everything's crayons now.
What? There's a bunch of crayons in here. I was drinking water, I thought, and there's just a bunch of crayons. What's with the lighting in it? Oh my god! Well, there's crayons in this cup too! More crayons? Yeah! I just don't know the source of all these crayons!
What you saw in Cyril's videos was almost 100% fake. Sure, the Frenchman was real, the Orbeez were real, all of the swearing was real, but a lot of the scenarios that he presented I believe were a hoax. However, one viewer of my channel, Marcus Bell, hey Marcus, how you doing? How you going? How's the family? Keeping safe? Staying in quarantine? Being all safe with that? Looking forward to Breath of the Wild 2? I am. What's your take on that? What do you reckon that green hand thing is? Anyway, Marcus did a really clever thing. And what he did was he turned around my own statement in my video against me, which is, I don't hold that against him. I need to be as transparent as I can with this. What I said was something along the lines of that the burden of proof does lie with you when you're creating a video. And I did say that, but I didn't prove any of my hypotheses. So in my old video I made a few claims. I didn't do anything to prove that those claims could be true or how they're applied to Cyril's video. I can't show how Cyril would have done that, but I can try and recreate what he's done. So in this video I'll be breaking down the main parts that you guys took issue with after seeing my video and saying I don't think this part was fake. I'll be recreating all of those, and you can see for yourself how easy it might be to fake something like this, go viral, and get 1 million views on TikTok. And then hopefully once we've got to the end of that and we've proved it all right, you can all fuck off and do something productive, because I know I'm milking this already, and you watching this is just helping me validate the fact that making this video was worthwhile, when really we're just all wasting time and there are bigger, better things to be talking about out in the world right now. Zoom the camera up for this part. That's as far as it goes. Alright, so the first thing that you guys really got caught up on was that the footage of what appeared to be septic water shooting out of his bathroom sink after he poured salt down the drain.
On lève l'eau. Bref, du coup, on va tester ça parce que regardez, là, ils sont toujours encore là. Je les ai, je sais. Du coup, là, je vais mettre du sel et après, on va voir ça. Saucisson, j'ai laissé couler l'eau, regardez, et ça fait un peu de bruit, ça fait des bruits bizarres. Écoutez-moi ça, c'est trop bizarre. En tout cas, je suis content, j'ai réussi à tout enlever. Mais, oula! Ah! Mais c'est quoi ça? Arrête! Oh mon Dieu! C'est quoi? Ah, ça pue la merde, c'est la chasse qui remonte. Je fais quoi là, mes saucissons?
So I made the suggestion in my last video that this could easily be faked. You could do this by removing the catch in the drain that sits just below the sink, removing that out, putting something in there that can expand, like I mentioned a condom or a surgical glove. I think my exact words were what I think's happened here, because you can easily access the drainage under your sink, and you know, it wouldn't be too hard to get maybe a condom or a balloon filled with brown water and have somebody down there squeeze and it pop on out. This seems to be one of the main contentions with a lot of people, excuse the pun here, poo-pooing my idea. Let's read some of your comments, shall we? There was literally shit coming up through his sink and toilet. I don't think the part where literal poop came up the sink was fake. Okay, but why would he go as far as to put brown substance for someone to go down in the sewers and then somehow fidge his own sink into which would somehow had good enough aim to push inside the sewage pipes and somehow reach the sink, making what seems to be shit come out? Nah, that just seems too complicated to be faked. So clearly some of you didn't watch the whole video, and those of you who did were struggling with concepts beyond your comprehension. So let me break it down for you a little bit more. Rather than tell you about this, let's just show you how this could have been faked. What you're seeing here is your typical bathroom sink setup. Well, not too typical, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Basically, under every sink there is a certain configuration to the pipes, so that if you drop jewelry or if you drop something precious down there, it doesn't just go straight down the drain. It catches in a little bend normally. With what I have under my sink, it's actually like a little cup, and then there's a pipe above that, so that once the water reaches a certain level, it just kind of skims off the top, and there's always a certain amount of stagnant water sitting in there. Not an ideal setup, I'll admit, and clearly haven't cleaned it out for quite a few years, because there is maybe 5 years worth of hair in there. That's where all of this stuff went. But if you dropped like your engagement ring or something precious down there, it would be in the cup and you could unscrew it and retrieve it. So once you remove this, you are basically opening up the drain above. So what I've done here is I've gone and got a surgical glove. There was some PPE that I could finally get my hands on. I've zip tied it under the sink and I'm filling it up with some water and some blue dye, just like those really family safe tampon ads that they used to have back when I watched TV. I haven't watched TV in a long time. I don't know if they still pour blue liquid on tampons or on pads, sanitary pads, but that is what I'm doing here, just to make it look appeasing. And then simply all I had to do was, once it reached a certain level, was squeeze the glove and you can see water issuing out from the sink. Now, it didn't issue out exactly like in Cyril's video, and the reason for that is, as I mentioned, this bathroom that you're seeing here was actually recently, well, back in the 90s, it was renovated to make it wheelchair accessible, and they changed the vanity. So what you're seeing here with the setup is actually a little bit unusual. I've never come across this before in all my life. I've lived in about a half a dozen houses before, and I've tinkered around with sinks before. I've never seen one that's quite like this, where it's just got that cup that catches it and lets it sort of skim off the top, or kind of like a cistern system. So I've went to my laundry where I've got a more traditional S-bend or whatever you want to call it, and we did the same experiment there to a slightly better result, more in line with what you saw in Cyril's video. Unfortunately, I didn't quite lift the camera up enough to see the plug, because it's quite a tight fit in there while I'm renovating it. But you can see the reflection in the stainless steel sink that the water is issuing out, and there's quite a lot of it. And it would be quite easy for Cyril to do this with a friend, or even to do it one-handed like I did, and just make sure it looked right before uploading it. I don't take that much care when making a video. So hopefully we can see eye to eye on that. It didn't involve, my explanation didn't involve a situation where you'd need to crawl into the sewer with some sort of mechanism to eject it right up into the household. You could do it right there under the sink. I think a lot of people misunderstood that and don't really know what is under a sink. So have a look for yourself. you'll probably see it's the more common S-bend. It would be very easy because they just unscrew and then you can put whatever you want there and eject whatever kind of liquid you want out of your sink if you're that way inclined. Another issue people took to heart was the smoking vacuum cleaner.
Pour une fois que vous m'avez donné une bonne idée, là, j'en peux plus, hein. Oula. Bon, je sais... Ah! Mais c'est quoi ça? Oula! Jésus, Marie-Joseph. L'aspirateur, il est en train de fumer! Zut! Ceux-ci sont, regardez, il est en train de brûler! Merde, il m'a coûté 300 balles! Putain, j'en peux plus.
P. Patrick Tuckers wrote, if you suck up water in a vacuum cleaner, it will start to smoke. Well, he didn't say that exactly. I'm paraphrasing, but I can't be bothered rereading this. So I went out and I found some footage on YouTube, and I replied to Mr. Tuckers, P. Patrick Tuckers, PPT. I supplied him a link to a bagless vacuum cleaner that was able to suck up almost a whole bucket of water without any smoke issuing from it. But the type of vacuum cleaner that Cyril used in the video, it was actually a Nilsk GD1000, which I know because I've actually used one of these before. My family used to run a flooring business. I'd get a part-time job on the weekends when I was a teenager, vacuuming up dust with one of these. They are very robust. They can be used in a commercial setting and they can vacuum up plaster dust and wet dust and all sorts of stuff without having any issues. Fun fact about that particular vacuum cleaner, my brother stole it from the business. That was about 15 plus years ago, and over Christmas I saw his wife still using it to vacuum the house up. So that's how long it's lasted in a commercial setting and then in a home environment, and it's still going strong, and that's how I knew the exact model and make of it because I recognized it when I saw it on the video. Long story short, these are very good vacuum cleaners. So I feel like using that footage with the vacuum cleaner that is bagless isn't 100% correct because the GD1000 does have a bag. I have a vacuum cleaner in the garage that is about to go to the dump because I used it to vacuum up a whole bunch of lead-based paint. So rather than exposing my family to neurotoxins, we're going to just chuck it out. But before we do, we'll try and blow it up by sucking up some water. So let's have a look at how that went. So as you can see, an interesting result. We had some steam issuing from it, what I believe was steam, and then the water started coming out of the filter as well. Orbeez, I don't know if they are wet to the touch. I don't know if they have enough moisture to generate steam like what happened here, but I'm willing to take a L on this one and admit that what you might have seen in Cyril's video was probably... I'm 50-50. What I take issue with is that he hid it behind the door and he pushed it further behind the door so you couldn't actually see where the steam was issuing from. The filter on the GD1000 is also on the top rather than on the bottom, so it's strange that the steam was issuing from the back and behind of it rather than from the top where the filter is located, similar to what you saw in my experiment. Also, it's worthy to note that as soon as I turned off my vacuum cleaner, the steam stopped, whereas in Cyril's example, the steam continued to issue, which is a little bit strange, especially considering that I think Orbeez are a little bit drier than pure water. So really, the amount of liquid that was in there couldn't have been more than what I was sucking up. With Cyril's video, it would have been very easy for him just to poke his phone around the corner and show us, for clarity, that the steam was coming from underneath rather than from like a smoke machine, which is what I initially assumed. At the end of the day, I'm going to leave it to you guys to decide whether or not you think that part was fake or legit. You be the judge. I feel like I'm on presenting an episode of Unsolved Mysteries.
For every mystery, there is someone, somewhere, who knows the truth. Perhaps that someone is watching. Perhaps it's you.
Another issue that a lot of people took was the section with the Orbeez in the drain. How would he fake Orbeez on the street?
Regardez-moi ça. Merde! Et là je vois quoi? Je vois des billes partout. Et regardez là-bas ce qui sort des égouts. Putain de merde, scheiße! Regardez, ça sort pas tous les trous des égouts. Putain, c'est dans ma rue.
For my answer to that, just have a look at this. fuck. Oh, shit. Oh, fuck no. Oh, fuck. Dang it. Shit balls. Oh, no.
All these comments I found in the drain.
Oh, that's weird. I wonder how they got there.
How
'Cause
did they get there?
I definitely, like, this isn't something that I'd just flush down the toilet or anything.
There's quite a few of them.
Oh, okay. No, this is my first time seeing any of these. Like, I wouldn't have liked any of these or anything. Yeah, no, this...
Are you sure?
Positive that none of these would be things that I'd...
Because this has a blue like on it.
No, that's, like, I think sometimes it's just the... Must have been the tone of the printer or something, or... Maybe
don't
when
know,
it was being
'cause-
flushed down the toilet, it got some... You know that blue toilet liquid? Maybe that got... Like, just... In theory, if it was flushed down a toilet, I'm not saying I did that, or that it can even happen, or then it would even end up on the road if I did do that. So there's my example of how he could have easily faked that. Just replace the strips of paper with Orbeez. It's not like he had a whole bath full of Orbeez to spare. You know, he could just scoop them up in a bucket and tip them down the street at night and then walk his dog the next day and film them after a heavy rainfall looking like they came out of the drain. You know, I don't feel like I needed to explain that, but you guys had some good explanations for how it could have got from his toilet and from his bath down the drain. Even though once the Orbeez were in the bath, if you pulled the plug to let the water out, the Orbeez were too big to even go through the drain, and the plug was in there while they were expanding, so I don't quite know how you came to that conclusion. Anyway, you guys said, well, France is old, so therefore their toilet would be connected to an open-air drain that opens up into the street outside. Yeah, okay. Have you heard of typhoid fever? Have you heard of cholera? Not recently, right? And that's because during the Industrial Revolution, where a lot of Western cultures were going through a bit of a big boom, there were lots of people, and they thought flushing their shit down the toilet was just the best thing, you know? You weren't living unless you had a toilet where you could flush your fecal matter down onto the street outside. It was just the best, until they discovered that you couldn't just let your shit sit in an open sewer outside, because then people would start getting these diseases. These diseases were pretty damn bad.
It happened so fast. By morning, my father was very sick. He had diarrhea that looked like grey water and poured out of him.
You would literally die of dehydration because you'd shit yourself so bad. Here's a little history lesson for you all. In the 1800s, water-related spread of chloria was eliminated by modern water and sewage treatment systems. Yeah, that's in the Western world. And according to the Ministry of Health in New Zealand, which is where I am, typhoid is caused by a bacterium called Salmonella typhi, which is passed out of affected people in their feces, or poos as well, and sometimes in their urine or wheeze. And I love that in, on our government website for New Zealand Health Organisation, whatever, Ministry of Health, that they've had to define the differences between that language for simple folk. And finally, a lot of people wanted to take a stab that Cyril was living in a very old house in France with a decrepit sewer system, which is why even though we've got all these modern advancements that stop you from getting these diseases, it would still lead to his poo when he flushes the toilet to somehow be able to erupt in the street outside. And to that I say, have you checked out the rest of his channel? Because back on the 6th of April 2019, he posted a video titled, and I'm going to butcher this as well, so excuse my French, Je vous dévoile ma mansion de 500 meters squared, which Google translated to, I am revealing my 500 square meter house. And in that we can actually see that his house has fairly modern fixtures. It's got a built-in jacuzzi, it's got vintage style fixings in the kitchen, which does make it look like it's old, but it's, you know, it's a style. And just if you think that this particular video of him showing off this house was just him in an Airbnb or something like that, you can actually see that this location where he first shows you what Orbeez look like in his initial video matches exactly the veranda, sort of indoor veranda pool area that you can see in the video where he's showing off his house. So, led to believe that this is one and the same location. Look, I'm no Strasbourg real estate expert, okay? But if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say that maybe I'd put this house in being not built past the 80s, so maybe like a 40-year-old house, give or take, or at least refitted and redone around that era. But I base this on the fact that the windows are all sort of a villa-style aluminium or PVC. They're not made out of traditional hardwood like what you'd get back in the 60s or the 50s and that sort of thing. The mortar on the fireplace as well, you can tell that those are machined cinder blocks rather than, you know, traditional clay bricks that have been mortared into place. So there's the interior of the house has been pretty recently done. You don't normally do that and ignore the plumbing and the toilets and that sort of thing. And then also, finally, all of the doors, they look like hollow core veneer doors rather than hardwood doors, which again is more traditional in houses built in the 1960s and further back. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm just a layman in that subject, but the conclusion I draw from that is that this is not an old house. Therefore, the plumbing isn't as shitty as you all assume it is just because it's France. I am open to you guys trying to school me to be better in the comment section. If you think I'm wrong, go ahead and tell me. I don't care at this point. So there you have it, folks. If you still want to believe that this asshole who put a sponsorship ad at the beginning of a video that he knew would go viral because all of his TikToks were taking off, be my guest. Believe away. Believe anything you want, sweetheart, because I put what I can out there. I think that he's misled a lot of people. A lot of people got fired up that I'm just making this shit up. Hopefully something that I provided here helps give some shred of evidence or proof to my arguments if you didn't believe me before. Yeah, and if you still don't believe me over these examples, hey, be my guest, go down the comment section down below and I'll definitely respond to you, you fuckwit. Anyway, that's the rest of the video. Thanks guys for watching. I am going to sign out right now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
I wanna taste your content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.